Welcome to the Weed Art and Activism series. And we're delighted today to have Rulan Tangen's wonderful presentation, and we will introduce her in just a moment. Just a few moments about Weed. We are the Women Eco Artist Dialogue, which was founded in 1996. It's a volunteer-run collective of women-identified visual artist curators, writers, art historians, researchers who are interested in highlighting the intersection between art and ecological issues and social justice issues. And I'm Mary White, one of the chair for the moment. It's a volunteer rotating chair. So we'll start with a land acknowledgement. Weed's office sits on the territory of the Wichen, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County, near one of the largest shell mounds in the Bay Area. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and other familiar descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize the Muwekma Ohlone tribe who are campaigning to become federally recognized, the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone who are researching, revitalizing, and preserving Ramaytush Ohlone history and culture, and the Confederated Villages of Lejeune and Segorite Land Trust who are working to return native land back to Indigenous stewardship. Please, if you'd like, put in your own land acknowledgement in the chat. A little housekeeping. We're recording this presentation and we will be archiving it on our website, weedartist.org. Please keep your audio muted during the presentation. The hosts may mute you if there's extra noise. If you have questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat. And then after the session is over, we'll stop the first recording and then we'll immediately start a second recording for questions and answers. So there'll be two recordings when you look at the archive. Okay, now I'd like to introduce our presentation for today. The presentation is Earth Body Restoring the Eco-Somatic with Rulan Tangen. And I'd like to read her bio. And Rulan, please correct me. Is this the right pronunciation of your name?
I think so. Both names are in languages that I'm not a fluent speaker of that are tonal. So I think it's close. Rulan Tangen is how I say it, and I'll recognize it in many different forms.
Thank you. Rulan is the founding artistic director, choreographer of Dancing Earth, shares her eco-somatic purpose and practices through compelling languages of movement and words. As a cancer survivor and longtime professional dance artist, she reveals her personal experience of the life-giving powers of movement to empower and reconnect. Her intercultural work with artists, students, and communities through 18 states and 14 countries has been invited to she's been invited to facilitate creative response and contemporary ritual to local issues such as reforestation, sacred waters, solar energy, cultivating plants for medicine and food, and holistic health. For the Weed Circle today, she will elucidate how the body can reflect and regenerate to potentially restore and story the individual, the interpersonal, the intercultural, interspecies, and cosmic in connection. She will describe the influences and inspiration which have motivated her to develop over 28 methodologies in the last 20 years, including land dance, the flower way, bodies of water, spiral of sensuous somatic, elemental movements, roots in rhythm and earth body, movements for all, These forms are shared with humans of all backgrounds through master classes, ritual dance theater performances, retreats, seasonal institutes, personal coaching, teacher trainings, and facilitation of group creative processes in settings as diverse as canyons, theaters, museums, and forests. With this offering, she hopes to ignite the relevance of embodiment of eco-somatic movement as a source, instrument, and response to ecological movement sustainability. With no further ado, well, actually, I want to read her bio too. Rulan is an internationally accomplished dance artist and choreographer. Her work values body as a source of knowing, movement as an expression of collective, collaborative, eco-cultural worldviews, with dance as ritual for transformation. She believes in movement as continuances from ancient to futuristic, culminating in her vision for her contemporary dance company, Dancing Earth, Indigenous Contemporary Dance Creations. Her work has been invited to 14 countries, and she has been awarded the Kennedy Center Citizen Artists for Service, Justice, Freedom, Courage, Gratitude, Blades of Grass Fellowship for Socially Engaged Art, Catalyst Initiative from the Center of Performance and Social Practice, Art and Social Change Award from the Arts and Healing Network, Costo Medal for Education, New Mexico School of the Arts Community Leadership Award, and one of the few companies to be awarded both the National Dance Project and National Theater Project Production and Touring Awards for different eco performances productions. All right, with no further ado, we'd like to have Rulan start.
Thank you so much for sharing so much about me. I will say none of that matters. What matters is what you're going to experience in the here and the now, and what you're going to take away with you. I have a theory that's I guess it's called a hypothesis, but this hypothesis is actually backed by science, that when we first meet each other, it's very, very difficult to hear the words and remember them. Through schooling and other such ways, that gets trained into us, or if you're part of an oral history, generations of oral history, you'll be sitting quietly and you'll remember sounds, and you usually have to repeat those words over and over to remember them. Otherwise, all we're doing is we're looking at people, we're smelling them, and we're trying to decide if they're going to take our food away from us. Something pretty baseline like that. We're looking at posture. We're looking at what their body is telling us. So I'm going to be moving a lot, but I'm going to be inviting you to move along with me very often. I'll start something and then I'll encourage you to try it with me. And you know, the good thing is a lot of you are off camera. So if you're feeling shy about it, I won't see you. The other thing is, when I take off my reading glasses, I won't see you. So this is not for me to perform for you, nor for you to perform for me. This is for you to start to be able to just, you know, scratch the surface. I've been doing this for, I don't know, 40 years, 100 years, 500 years. I've been doing it a long time. I've got about 45 minutes. That's about a minute per year of my experience. So I'm going to take a little bit and drop it in and let your body experience some of my experiences so that it can wake up new experiences for you. I first want to say thank you to Women Eco Artist Dialogue. It's a privilege to be among movers and shakers. And there was a whole team that was helping me, Kasha and Callan and Mary and Minouche. So there's a whole bunch of people that are out there that will never, you know, I haven't seen them. I've only seen two of them. And just recognizing how much it takes to bring us together. We're being connected by the internet. The internet comes from minerals that were mined by people, probably very young people. And there is a sacrifice that's made for us to be able to connect here. Yet here we are. We want to take in that kind of it's a big honor, blessing. So I'm just reaching, and then I'm weaving like a spider. So you can call it a stretching one way and the other. to just be able to move your body one hand across the other, and then invite your imagination to create this big circle. I see people coming from Manitoba and that they're part Métis, and I was assisting a great Métis artist on her project. So I like, oh, I got a relative all the way up north. See a lot of people in the Bay Area. I heard Weed say they're in Huichin. Oh my goodness, you're connected to Karina Gould, one of the greatest native matriarchs we have. I've done a dance with her whole story about Huichin, about that area. So it makes me feel more connected to know where you all are coming in from. We'll get there in a moment. So just, I see two people three people, four people that were brave enough to be on camera, but I'm going to invite you to just be a part of this gesture, this reaching across. This is the weaving together. This is acknowledging what it took, all of the minerals, all of the digging, all of the satellites, or who knows what comes here, and to outstretch your arms. And at the very least, you're going to feel good. All right. And so last time I'm going to call you out, but I think that we can learn more through our bodies. I really, really do. If not all of us, then somebody that you're going to teach or have a communication with. It's probably like the antsy little kid in class where they're like, he can't concentrate, or I'm ADHD. How many of you might be? You know what? You're probably geniuses with your body, but we've been trained to sit still. Most of us are women here. Let's not sit still and be quiet anymore, okay? So let's be loud with our bodies. And, at the very least, you get a little exercise, you'll stretch out, you'll feel good. So for a moment here, just to start us out, I'm going to invite you to be in Aspen Grove. I'm going to do one last tech test. I'm going to put some sound on, and I want to see if you can hear my sound and my music. So I'm going to be speaking. And if you can't, then Callan, if you can just go like this, then I'll know how to cut the sound. All right, here's the sound. Oh, I can't hear it now. Oh, I give up. All right, we're going to dance in silence like the trees do. So all this is an exercise for us to just imagine for a moment that we're in Aspen Grove. So I'm here, I'm in the desert. My family's from the Bay Area, but I've chosen to live in the high desert. And I'll give you a quote about that by Terry Tempest Williams in a moment. But here in the desert, we have these trees, and they're called aspen trees. So I'm going to ask you to stand with your feet together. So you're creating one long trunk just to feel that energy pushing down through your heels. Feel the 5 pads of your toes, the ball of your foot, the outside ridge. This is going to connect you to your roots. Your roots right now might be on a wooden floor, but that wood was once trees. And then I'm just going to invite you to bring those arms close to the body so you're embracing the shape of yourself and slowly extending your arms. And I learned from trees how to be in reciprocity. What that means is inhaling, I'm receiving oxygen that's made from me by the tree relatives. Hold your breath, let the fingers come together, diving down like a bird. And then I usually bend my knees here. I scoop my arms and I exhale. I'm giving back carbon dioxide. So I'm receiving and giving in the form of breath. Breath is how I know I'm alive. And I'm doing this in exchange with plants and trees. I start my company rehearsals this way. I start classes with little kids this way. I start classes at the senior center this way because a world of reciprocity is what we need more of. I'm going to do just a few more. Inhaling and exhaling, receiving oxygen that's made for us by plants and trees, and giving back carbon dioxide for those plants and trees. So if all that you do during this is take deep breaths, going, I won't hear it because you're off, but you'll be giving more breath back. So that's one beautiful way that movement can help us bring something back to our plant and tree relatives. So that's our reciprocity breath from the trees. And then at a certain time of year, the aspen leaves shake And you can feel your wrist shaking, and then your elbows, and then your shoulders. And this is a beautiful somatic exercises that, again, we can learn from trees. We can learn from animals how they shake something off. We need this a lot. There is a lot to shake off, people. Shake it off in my legs. And if you're not sitting next to, if you're not riding the BART train next to somebody, you can go, and you can make sound with your shake. So shaking, literally, it shakes energy off of you. And again, I'm talking often in poetic terms about energy, and there's science to back up almost everything that I've said. Sometimes the science doesn't catch up for a few centuries or a few years, but it often does. This is our body knowledge that we're connecting into. So this shaking, like I said, I'd like to see us be movers and shakers here. And then with our breath, I'd like to just bring in a little quote about breath. Let me see. It's so fun having reading glasses, like having a little bird sitting on my nose. All right, I couldn't find it, but I'll bring the desert one. It's strange how deserts turn us into believers. I believe in walking in a landscape of mirages because you learn humility. I believe in living in a land of little water because life is drawn together. And I'll just pause there. That's Terry Tempest Williams. I'm just getting a glimpse into um, what I believe brings that how I'm affected by the place that I'm in and how it has shaped my movements. Before I was a professional dancer, yes, but then I went through a battle with cancer, lost all my hair, my skin, my muscles. Um, but my breath, I was moving because I was breathing, so I knew I was alive. And I didn't want to even know about any of those dance forms that I had been so expert in. I just had to learn to walk again. And then from there, I'm like, well, maybe I could move like a tree as a thank you for life. And that is, I think, what brought me to create Dancing Earth, to give a thank you for life. Um, when we give thanks, it leads us to making offerings, to giving a gift. When you go to someone's house, you give a gift. Um, I don't know how many of you are uh, have ancestral lineage to the land you're on, but many of us are migrants. That's part of humans as well. I've got ancestry on one side from Luzon Island. It's a place that's become part of an archipelago post-colonially known as the Philippines. The other side strands to Norway, France, Canada, Scotland, and Ireland, and who knows what I'll find out in the future. I'm saying that because I've noticed that people gave a land acknowledgement, and I'm going to actually ask you to, if you're sitting down or you're standing up, to just lean your hands down a little. If you're able to touch the ground, that's fine. If not, it's just like bringing yourself into viewing that place you're on. And then standing up to bring your hands behind your back to your front. And so this is my form that I'm using today for making an offering. It's an intention that lands on the ground that you're at. It comes from you and only you. This intention could be compassion. It could be, it's connected to things like I want to get my doctorate or I want to pay my rent this month, but there might be something besides a transaction like responsibility, caretaking, kindness. And if you're just able to take a moment, what is your intention today, this season, for your time on this land? And we all hope that our intentions, our gifts, or offerings are relevant and can be received. So I could do this movement all day long of the intentions that I have. I often find if I have an intention for myself, if I go a little deeper into my body, it's for the everything. So let's see. As we had reached down to the land that we're on, I think a lot of you spoke to the land that you're on right now. And let's just call that one hand. And so we'll ground with one hand down. And then the other hand could be the lands that we're from. Now, what does that mean? I mean, I think I just told you like 9 different lands that, quote, I'm from. I haven't been to most of those lands. Those are ancestral lands. So when I visited Corinna and Sogorea Te and many others, they were like, well, it's important to know where you're from before you can be of service and listen to us and learn from us, the native people of this land. So I also like to think about where I'm from as being the places that influenced me. I was deeply influenced by the terrain of Oaxaca, Mexico. It's one of the reasons that I chose to come to the Southwest. I was deeply influenced by the street urban setting of New York City. I dreamed of going there, to the graffiti on the walls and the great center for dance. So those places are also where I'm from, where I stand on, where I've lived in the past, where I want to go in the future, the places where my ancestors grew their plants and named their mountains, the places where my ancestors might have fled famine and massacre, the places where they made home, that a generation back are family homes to me. So I want to acknowledge my relationship with all those places, and I invite you to do the same. Bending your knees, gathering all of those, and letting them land on you. So sometimes I do this from the ground up, where I let myself be shaped. Let's call it a moving massage. Lands that have shaped me, which by definition include people who have shaped me. My mother, my aunties, my grandpa, my grandma and grandpas that I hardly saw, never even met, as well as my dance teachers, different elders who took me in, people who, farmers who fed me when I didn't have much food. So just like we're a malleable clay, we're honoring those places and those people that have shaped us to be what we are. All right, it's a lot of talking for me. I became a dancer because I didn't like talking. And I find myself in that position a lot to have to speak. So again, when I was given back life after this battle with cancer, you know, I try to give a yes, I try to be of service. So that's a lot of what dance is for me now, and speaking is for me now. Okay, if you a little tired from all of that, you might take a little water. Different Native grandmothers I've been in relationship with, they were very excited by Dr. Emoto, who described the shift of water crystals when you said love and gratitude towards them. They said, that's what we mean. That's what we mean. The water in your body, as well as the planet, we can shift them with our thoughts and intentions. And I said, yeah, the water in the body. We're made from a lot of water. I knew that. That's in the books, 70, 80%. You know, it's in our muscles, it's in our blood. They're like, no, your body is water. I'm like, sure, I know what they mean. Science caught up just a few years ago. They had been dissecting, what's it called? You've taken dead bodies, cutting them up. They never found this organ because the water dried up. What these grandmothers knew on some level is that there's a fluid sac of water that when we're alive, it is all of us. It's just beneath the skin. I see someone nodding. All right, someone's got some science there, some indigenous science. And so we literally are water even beyond what was known for, you know, a couple thousand years of science. Now, I'm not saying that that's Western science. There might be many other nations of science, Islamic science, African science, obviously native science that knew that, but it wasn't considered. Now it's been discovered. Oof, all right. So here we are water. I was bringing all this long story. I sometimes think it's nice to give a little bit of story. To say that I think the invitation was as artist and activist. And I want to sort of be humble. That was what it said in that desert quote, that the desert teaches me to be humble. There are activists who are on the front line, risking their bodies on the front lines of the Amazons. I have visited them there. Um, Other extended relatives that are, fighting on the front lines daily in many different ways or in politics. I've got a good friend who she's putting herself through a lot right now to advocate for healthcare in New Mexico for rural and poor people. So I don't want to take space using the term activism. I've used the word artivism to, uplift artists who advocate either by their own passion or because they're asked to. In 2013, there were Basque farmers who received an award at the Food Sovereignty Conference. And they said, laws do, I think they might have been talking about the laws that are trying to protect uh, corn, for example, from being genetically modified. And they said, we've tried the legal way, we've tried the right way. We've sent, I've heard this from other groups, we've sent our young people to learn that language and become lawyers. And is it working so great? Well, how about the artists? They can change from the heart. So that was one of the asks that came to me in 2014 to create work about seeds and plants and growing up seeds and plants. So sometimes we are commissioned. We're commissioned by community members. My first big commission, it took me 6 years to just carry the weight of it. They were Lakota and Anishinaabe grandmothers who shocked to me. I had been just creating after 10 years of waiting for permissions. I started to create from my dream space with young artists. I wasn't moving much myself because I was just barely walking, but just as I was sort of dreaming that like, oh, am I alive? These four young guys, I feel like they fell out of the sky right in front of me, and they were break dancers and martial artists, but they hadn't found contemporary dance because it had no relevance to them. And I said, let's create something together, and invited in them to be their full selves, their full cultural selves, their creative selves, their goofy, playful selves. And I was really nervous because we didn't have a big costume budget. And the guys were like, well, we talked about costume, and they said, well, our ancestors just wore like these little flaps. And I think that's what we should be doing. And after it took a while to talk them out of their diesel jeans. But when I had been living amongst Lakota people maybe 10 years earlier, I remembered a lot of modesty. So there we were at this conference. The guys were coming out, kicking and flying. And I was like, I saw the grandmothers. I'm like, this is it. I'm going to be axed. I'm going to be like asked to, not do this anymore. But instead, those grandmothers came up and they embraced the young men and they said, you are the warriors of the today. Our artists are our warriors. And then they looked at me and asked me to make work about water. And I had to carry that huge responsibility for 6 years, just breathing into it. And eventually I did make that work. I got a grant for 4 people. I said, let's do 8. 28 people showed up. And they said, this is our fight. This is our story. We're going to do this. I think they all stayed in one room somewhere. That's when we went to the farmers and asked for food. And that gave me the reason to do the next work, which is about seeds and foods and plants, because even though we didn't have money, we danced at the farmers market and they recognized our gifts and they gave us incredible, like kings. They weren't asking for a report about how many bodies we served and how much climate change we fixed, which, the nonprofit industrial complex of funds can be limiting like that. So that was a long story to talk about artists being called in to become to bring out the messaging in a different way. In other words, the fights that we're fighting for are so huge that they require every skill, every strategy, art being one of them. And I've been honored. Those are two of the stories that I mention. And I will say that often when I'm invited to bring embodiment into a cause, it tends to be from an environmental perspective. And I've also been considered an artist for social change because of the opportunities that I made for Black, Indigenous, LGBTQ, people of color, mixed, and non-binary anything, out of the box people. Um, so I was considered an artist for social change also. Most of these are not words I apply for myself. I think once you've taken a hat and put it on, that's the only hat you get to wear. But I did notice that um, one really intersects with the other. As we're doing a work about water, people want to tell their stories. They want to say, hey, from up north here in Canada, this was a Cree woman. There's people that are, yes, they've got oil, they got money now, but they don't have water. And so all of that makes its way in for people to give voice, to tell their stories within this woven whole. Um, a lot of the environmental problems that we have today are, a lot of it is because land and land knowledge was stolen. People were massacred. People were displaced from their lands to become slaves or indentured servants. That's still happening today. So I'm very much putting social and ecological crisis and advocacy together. Also because we are part of this ecosystem. We are part of this sacred ecosystem. So even though it's difficult to see that when we're reading the news and, turning on the water, sometimes it's more obvious than others in certain places we're in. But when I went back to Oaxaca recently, I was telling you how much I loved it. Yep, turned on the water, no existe, wasn't there. Overused by probably by tourists, so I was probably part of the problem. So I want to just say part of the sacred ecosystem, and I'm going to take the ecosystem as circles. It's called circles, and I'm not able to. You're not able to hear me if I put on my sound. Oh, we didn't even get the sound. No, we don't have the sound. So we're going to be like crazy people in the supermarket that are just moving without any music. With music, it's super cool, but this will be fun because it'll connect you to what that means. So why a circle to bring us into the ecosystem? Let's start with yourself, your belly button, and then circling around with your arms. You are an equal part of this ecosystem. You are standing with the responsibility to bring your gifts into the center, like what we did before, from our back to our front and forward. So if everyone's doing that, we're all contributing to a greater whole. Within our own self, if our earth is body, we can circle our shoulders, one and then the other. So from our body, we can learn how different sides, the right and the left, can come together for the collective ecosystem of this earth. If we are feeling our body as earth right now, our elbows can trace the moon overhead, while the other side makes a circle in the water. So they're working together. The moon overhead shimmering in the water below, both making circles. We can switch to the other side. Maybe the side is the sun. The sun is glittering in the water. Moving down, we have the ribs, which protect our heart and our lungs. Colonization has often put us, and let's reverse that, really put us into needing to sort of stay small and stay unseen. Even, when you're a woman walking in a city, sometimes you're like, just don't look at me, So now we're going to get a little bit more fluid and juicy with it. Let's go figure eights through that rib, and then dropping down to the stomach. So this is going to be more of a massage. I'm just going to be loving up this chubby area because I'm not getting love about it anywhere else. So I got to give it. And I'm only going to go in one direction, from the left and down, because that helps with my digestion. Usually I reverse everything I do. And then I'm going to wrap around my center. I'm just going to feel the softness. There's no bones there. All of those organs are present. So we're just thanking those organs. We have our hips, so we can just swing side to side. And a lot of times we hold trauma in our bodies, and there's different parts of our bodies that it's harder to get into flow. But just by moving into flow, so shoulders, ribs, soft head, hips, just by moving into flow, it's actually unlocking some of the stuck places that trauma in our lifetimes or in previous lifetimes has moved into the body. So even when you're like, oh, it hurts right there. Oh, I feel stiff there. You don't necessarily have to know everything of how you got that way, but moving through it actually opens up pathways. And my knees are soft as I'm doing this. My feet might be sort of caressing the floor as I do this. And we've connected with the ecosystem all around us. Let's bring it to the front and to the back so that we're in the center, as well as the ecosystem of underground and up into the sky world. Underneath the ground that we're on, there's fire down below, there's water systems, there's roots, there's seeds. Up above, we have the stars that have taught ancestors, including my own, about navigation. So we're just taking in a circle. We're also in the center of an above and below world. So I could teach this for, a week-long workshop, but I'm going to just give you a little taste of it, about the interconnectedness of our systems. So from there, I think I want to talk about, all right, so we talked about activism, artivism, and so why the body? I've already given you some examples of the body. I'm hoping that already we've just done a few things. We've shaken, we've stood strong like a tree, we've created breath, we've done some circles in the body. I'm hoping that your body feels a little better, that you feel good. Now, sometimes we're not even able to tune into feeling good in our body. Again, that's colonization and oppression, to disconnect us. We're up in our heads, we're busy, we've got a to-do list, and to just like take a moment to like, how does my body feel? That, if we can do that for ourselves and let our body flow a little, we'll be able to make more full-bodied decisions. We'll be able to stand in our own power without being shrunken and shut down. So feeling good in the body, let's call that the first part right here, right inside of you. Like I'm doing it in front of me, but I'm actually like right inside of my marrow. It's like, I'm doing this for me as well. I often forget that. I'm often in like service and giving, which I love so much, but like, can I feel good? So I'm doing more movement these days. As the director of a dance company, I found myself doing less and less movement, more and more reports and administration. But now I'm bringing back that movement. So I want to feel good. And then when I feel good, I feel like I have more confidence. So I can stand on my feet and speak to you without losing my voice because I'm so terrified. I also feel like I'm literally like all of my parts of my body are awake. So before I might have been like looking at the screen, but now I feel like I can see with my elbow, I can hear with my hip, I can taste with my knee. So it's this sort of like multi-sensory kind of awakening that when I'm doing this, like in a retreat for a week up here in the desert. That's what we're getting to. And I'm just giving you a little taste of it, um, of how our body can be a microcosm of an interconnected earth with different circles and different parts. And that we ripple. So we ripple from feeling good in ourselves. And next is into exchange. So if we were in a live circle, we would have shared our intentions with each other. So imagine, so we're standing here, there's one of you up in Manitoba, a whole bunch in the Bay Area, who knows, ancestors from all over the world, and we're just squatting down, we're sitting into the place where we're at now, and we were giving from our spine through our belly. This is what my intention was when I brought it to land, but I want to tell you what it is. And I might not be saying this in English, so just let this wrap around, similar to what we did at the very beginning, we were weaving. So we're following those same spider web threads, but we're landing some dewdrops on them. Water is life, so we're like, this is the life that I wanted to bring to this web. And you can imagine what people are saying. I'm bringing compassion, I'm bringing curiosity, I'm bringing advocacy, I'm bringing my grandmother's knowledge. All of the things that people have to share of why they're here on this earth, why they're here in this place today. And then we're going to scoop it in and nourish ourselves with this, because we're more of us when we're all come together. There's more that we can do together. And just for fun, if you want to type in your intention, why are you here today? Why are you finding yourself on this land? What brought you here? What is your reason for, it's a big thing, right? Like, I got a lot of big dreams. Can you articulate it into one juicy word? In English, Spanish, Tagalog, French, Lakota, whatever. One word that is a symbol. So type in your intention. What is the intention you're bringing to the land you're on, to this today, to this season, this spring season? I'm just curious what I scooped up over myself. You know what I'm saying? Explore and witness. To be present and curious, calmness and connections. All right, well, I certainly hope that all these can be fulfilled. Curiosity is a good thing. Sometimes it gets killed off. Yeah, let's keep being curious and trying to find more. So we just experienced an exchange. So that's one of the things about when it gets a little bigger than ourselves. We get an exchange, like we get to be in relationship with other humans. And then when we've all come together with our diverse intentions and backgrounds and all of that, and we have a singular vision, I don't know what that is. We'd have to spend a little more time together. What is it that we're all dedicating ourselves to? Let's call it women as eco-artists. Let's say that's our intention. And then we all come to one beat. Now, I had a much better track prepared, but the internet does not want that track right now. So what I'm going to do is, all right, so my heartbeat's going a little fast. Okay. I'm going to try to clap in time. And all I'm going to ask you to do is gung, 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 gung. Walk with your left side, the side of your heart, then your left, and your right with the clap as you hear it. And what that means is all around this planet, we're coming together to be on one rhythm. Guess what? Everything wants to be in rhythm with something. The plants want to be in rhythm with the moon. The the there's different cycles and different rhythms. There we have a cycle that our Earth is coming to, wants to be in balance right around March 20th, in perfect balance. So we're just going to do a little bit of this so we can experience and imagine us all in one circle around this whole globe. And so that's an example of coming together in one rhythm. Add breath to that, which gives life. Bring sound into that to come into articulation of word. And then you have song and rhythm and movement, which essentially will bring us to a ritual, which usually brings transformation. I'll come back to that because maybe, I guess we could bring it here. So humans have exchanged, they've been on rhythm together, and the first rituals were about healing, were about transformation. Songs and dances were to tell stories. So taking us from one time space consciousness to another time space to tell a story of something that happened or something that will happen. So never doubt the power of dance and song and oratory to transform. It's been a tool since the beginning of time. There was a time when that tool was outlawed for the indigenous native people of this land, the so-called United States. It was outlawed until 1979, 1980. And people said, why would they outlaw dance? Like religious dance is just because it was so powerful. It could unite people. It did unite people of all tribes during the ghost dance movement of 1890. And the people who were massacred at Wounded Knee in 1890, many elders, women, and children were in the act of dancing the ghost dance. So this is an example of how powerful it is to dance together. And this was not, it was a very simple dance, probably not that much different from what we did. It was probably a circle, a dance moving in a circle, something that old people could do, young people could do. So a lot of times by society, we get tricked into thinking, oh, I'm not a dancer. Oh, only, she's a dancer. She can do this, she can do that because of fancy moves. But there's dances that are up and down this hemisphere across the world. There's communities that have dances that are done by people of all shapes and all sizes, simple dances that go on for a very long time. So for me, like I said, it's a thank you for life. My brother's in a wheelchair now. He can't he can't walk or talk. And, I move his arm up and down so that we can be in rhythm together. And I just want to encourage everyone to be like, if I can move my shoulders today and I'm listening to some music, shaking it off, yeah, that's your dance for today. And it's exactly what you need for today. And if you're ever invited into something where you're asked to come in, join a circle dance or a simple stepping dance, whether that's something more considered more traditional and ancestral or something that's considered more fun and contemporary, it's becoming united through a rhythm. So remember that possibility. I don't know how much timing we have. I'm going to just grab a few minutes. The next one is about empathy with our beyond human relations. So Dancing Earth, we have dances where we're like plants. You saw part of the aspen tree where we're like animals. And right now we're going to give you a tiny little snapshot, legs apart. You're in a room, you're just going to scan the room. You're going to scan it and you're just noticing things. I've been in this room most of this day, but I'm just looking down at the photographs, the artwork, just taking it in with a renewed appreciation. And then I'm going to ask you to do the same. What's the room you're in? And if you can just pause wherever you are, something that you're seeing, and take the shape of it. What does that mean? Maybe it's your arms, maybe it's your leg. You get to interpret it. So you're in relationship with it right now. When we're having a conversation with someone we like, we tend to take the same posture. We cross the same leg. We put our hand in the same place. So we're doing the same. We're coming into relationship. This isn't quite empathy yet. This is just making relationship with what's around us. We can also create empathy by using our imagination, by using our memory and our multisensory observation. So beyond the walls, these walls probably existed for 10 years. I don't know if they'll be here in 100 years, the ones that are around me. But beyond, I'm actually in a place that has different sets of mountains on all sides. And I remember that when I'm driving, I see the mountains on this side, the ones on that side. And if I use so that was my memory. My memory brings me to a multisensory observation of what it smells like here. And that reminds me to breathe. My imagination takes me even further, all the way across the Atlantic, all the way across the Pacific. If I look upwards, I'm bringing myself into sky, the constellations. With my legs apart, my arms apart, my fingers spread, I become a star. And I'm reminded that all of life on Earth is created out of carbon. Carbon comes from dying stars. So those are my ancestors up there, and that relates me to all that is, to all that is. So I think we might have reached the end of the first hour, and next we'll be able to bring in questions. So yeah, I'm just thinking about how for someone who doesn't like to talk, I sure had a lot to say with my body and my voice. Like I said, dedicated my life to this. It's not been an easy path. Um, but there's no other way for me. This is my thank you for life. This is my reciprocity for life. This is how I stand for causes that I believe in by interpreting stories that are shared with me, by allowing myself to be a vessel, bringing myself sometimes to protest, to bring in the big water props and make sure the news catches that protest. Like literally to use dance and movement as a way to gain attention. So, for a bigger cause than myself. So with that said, I think, Carolina, you're getting a little head nod. Did I complete my time?
Mary, what do you think?
I think this is beautiful. That what we're going to do now is thank you. Let's, if anybody wants to open their screen and give you a beautiful thank you.
Yeah.
How
I mean, I haven't moved in a while, so that was great.
how wonderful.
Okay, so you haven't moved in a while. This is so interesting. That's true. I mean, that's true of me. I'm a dance company director, and I was moving very little and getting angrier and sadder, more and more frustrated. And then I said, I think I need to like take some of the medicine that I give out all the time because it's going to help me figure things out. It's going to help me be creative and, find lo ways of love and empathy. I want to use the word for anyone who have Filipino heritage. The word kapwa, for me, it means kinship. It means empathy. It means connectedness with all. I have other cultural ways that are not in my bloodlines, but that I have responsibilities for that, remind us of that kinship we have with all beings, all humans and beyond humans. And yeah, that's what dance is able to give to me, including the being able to take something from my imagination and my thought box. Thank you for all the great thoughts. And then I bring it into life. I become a tree. It might not be the best tree in the world, but I become a tree. And that's magic making, people. When you can take a thought and turn it into reality. When you're creating a ritual or a dance performance or just your own ritual for yourself in your bathroom, you're making a choice about what you bring to life. You can dance for what you're against, but also dance what you're for. Um, when in my situation, when I go and see dance companies, when I see just one body type, just one skin tone, that's a choice. They're world makers, and they've made a choice for the world that they want to bring forward. We can dance as community. We can make the choice of the world making that we're doing. We can dance to honor the waters or the plants. We have not only we have the right and the responsibility to do so as modern day people. So thank you for being movers and shakers and world makers, even if it was just for this 1 minute. May it inspire you to more. And I do have online classes that are very accessible and many other offerings to give, but this isn't about me right now. This is about you asking questions.
All right. Well, let's thank you again. And we're going to stop this recording and we'll start the next recording immediately. And if you all have questions, then you can put them in the chat or you can just raise your hand and Callan and I will try to call on you. And then just remember that this presentation is going to be archived in the weedartist.org events section. So it'll
Glad you
be,
didn't tell me that. I would have been so nervous I would have fallen down.
oh, well, okay, close this one.